Good evening and welcome to the Hibs Observer Monday briefing with myself, Liam Bryce, joined by Craig Nisbet to take a look back at Hibs 4, Dundee 0 in the Scottish Premiership, the perfect end to the pre-split schedule for David Gray's side, racking up 4 goals, a brilliant performance and giving us a wee bit of breathing space in third as we head into the post-split schedule. Craig, thank you as always for joining us. How are you getting on?
Yeah, good. Had a great day yesterday. Great performance as well. Sun was shining. Couldn't have asked for much more. Did have to celebrate a Rangers equaliser, which felt a bit strange in the pub, but no. But apart from that, all good.
I did. It was a really kind of, just that you say that, it was an odd experience being in the press room and then obviously right next to the Albion bar, and then there's a huge cheer going up inside Easter Road for a Rangers equaliser, but with plenty of context around that. No, context. It's all about context, all about perspective.
No, absolutely.
I just don't think we'll see or hear anything like that anytime soon within the walls of Easter Road. But I mean, that goal for Rangers up at Pittodrie, it kind of could end up being really significant because obviously I think if Aberdeen had, maybe they'd won that game, it puts a wee bit of pressure on Hibs. I think, looking back at how the game panned out, the Hibs were, I don't think you'd be surprised if it affected them too much, having gone into that with a wee bit of pressure. But maybe, it had the opposite effect and really kind of spurred them on because it was a brilliant performance, a brilliant result, some really good goals, some really good play. And we're going to get stuck into all of it very shortly. Just before we get going, as always, though, a word for our sponsor, the Hibs Observer, is brought to you by S1 Jobs. If it's time to hand in your transfer request, then head over to s1jobs.com and upload your CV today. With thousands of jobs across Edinburgh and the surrounding area, you'll find the one at S1 Jobs. So start your search today. So let's get stuck into Sunday's game because there's a lot to get through, a lot to enjoy about it as well, which is really the main thing here. I think that was, I don't know, even just before we get going, I think that was one of the points that get brought up to David Gray in the post-match press conference, that wasn't just a really good win, it was such an entertaining win as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it's a conversation we had before on here. That period of time under Montgomery, nothing exciting happened. There was no big results. There was no big moments. And prior to that, with Johnson, it was, you had some big moments and then coupled with some really bad performances and some wild team selections and things like that. Whereas Gray, we've had some big moments like the Derby win, the win against Celtic and things like that. But, it'd been a while since we'd had a comprehensive home win, in terms of, we've looked comfortable in some games, but scoring the goals that we've deserved on the back of the performance. So yeah, it was almost the complete performance in terms of when we got the goals, the substitutes coming on and combining and creating goals as well. It was just like a perfect afternoon.
Yeah, because David Gray, he described the win over St Johnstone a couple of weeks ago as, a complete performance, but I feel like this was on a different level to that. And you can see here, we've got the expected goals race chart. You just see how dominant Hibs were in the game. 1.68, it's nowhere near their highest expected goals this season, but they were very clinical in front of goal. Some really good finishes in there, and you can see as well, how sort of little Dundee were really in the game.
Yeah, which was a surprise.
Aside from the odd spell, I suppose.
They had that wee bit after half time, I think, where they didn't create much, but they were, they had the chance. Simon Murray had the chance in the first half that Smith made a decent save from. It's almost like a replica of his goal in the home game last time, that kind of breaking off from the free kick and going across. Was a good save from Smith, and a wee bit in the second half where they started the second half reasonably well. But I think we were very dominant, and you're right, not the highest XG we've had in a while, but I think when we got in and we created the chances we created, we got into good positions and we were just really clinical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, first goal coming from Rocky Bashiri, and then we had a double from Kieran Bowie off the bench. Dwight Gale adding the gloss light on. So, I mean, it's just as well, we didn't include it at the start there because it was, it is the same team that's been picked the past few weeks, but it's, that continuity is, is proven effective. And then you're talking there about getting that kind of impact off the bench as well. So it's kind of all coming together, quite nicely heading into this post-split schedule, because a lot of teams at this point, you think fatigue might start kicking in certain squads, but I think for the fact that Hibs they've welcomed a few guys back. Bowie is still, you feel that he's got a lot to give in terms of, what what's going to be. So his energy levels, if you mean he's not at a full season in his legs already. I know he was injured, but he's only going to get stronger. Nicky Cadden coming off the bench again at the weekend, obviously not getting Joe Newell or the like back for a while yet is a blow. But the Cavs are kind of looking strong, looking very strong, and I think the continuity in the starting 11 again was pretty justified. I think, and they started the game strongly again, didn't they?
Yeah, I think you're right. As you said, Bowie, even Kurevich as well had a spell out that he's coming back from as well. So yeah, we've got quite a few players that have had injuries or knocks throughout the season and are just kind of coming back and kind of getting up to sharpness and stuff at the moment as well. So yeah, it kind of puts you in for these last 5 games. With that, and we've got a good depth in the squad as well now. Like you can see when we bring guys off the bench, it genuinely, it doesn't weaken the team, it strengthens the team, and they're all able to come on and fulfill a role really, really well. Like Gale's cameo, he's able to come on, and because he's on for 25 minutes, he can press aggressively. He can get forward and do that. Whereas earlier on in the season, we were trying to play him for 90 minutes because of those injuries. So yeah, it's a real credit to Gray and all the coaching staff and the guys supporting with the injuries as well and the rehab, because we've now got the squad into a really, really good place. But yeah, just I thought we'd talk about the bit of Dundee. I thought it was an odd setup from them. They sort of play that sort of 4-1-2-3 type of thing, sort of set up with the front three, and I sort of felt they kind of got caught between trying to press the back three, but also trying to go man for man in the middle, and it just created lots of space around the pitch that we were able to exploit. And the big thing when you play Hibs is that we've got our wing backs, and it's how you deal with them, and you can either deal with them by pushing your 2 midfielders out to press them and close them down, or you can play quite a high line and get your full backs to deal with them. And I sort of felt Dundee did neither really, and we were just able to exploit a lot of space. So we see here Iredale dribbles out, he manages to just get ahead. If you go into the next clip, he was able to switch it across to Miller, and there was quite a lot of switches of play in the game. There was most notable ones from Levitt and from Triantis, but Iredale and Miller were pretty good at doing that as well to each other. You can see there that Silla's pushed right out to try and close that one down, and if you look across to the left, you can see there's Boyle, there's Hoylett, there's Abita. There's a lot of space on that left-hand side, and we've got 3 really strong players out there. So if you go into the next clip, we created these little. I could have used so many of these different clips. But we just kept creating these little triangles across both sides of the pitch, where you can see Chris Cadden's dropped in here. Kurevich now is able to go into that space. You can see Silla just beside the referee. Dundee's backline really deep, and I think that's maybe the nature and the makeup of their backline with Shaughnessy and Robertson, that they're going to be really worried about Martin Boyle running off that line, so naturally they're going to drop deeper. And because we know Hoylett takes that position over on the left, it was actually Kurevich who dropped deep quite a lot in the build-up to get on the ball here. So you can see we created that little triangle with Kurevich, Cadden and Triantis. And if you go into that next clip, Chris Cadden plays it into him, and you go into the next clip, he bounces it back to Triantis, and then we hit that switch across the pitch. Boyle curves his run and comes inside, and you can see Hoylett and Obita and acres of space across there. And I think this was a chance where Hoylett ends up coming inside and having a shot that goes out. So you can see from Dundee's setup there, they're just so the amount of space they're giving up across the pitch, and I think that just seemed to be that their approach was maybe a wee bit misjudged. Just didn't really seem like they were quite cohesive in what they were doing. And because we're playing with this flow at the moment, we're just able to react to that and able to go. And I actually just thought it was, you said at the top of the show, it was just a really enjoyable watch in terms of how we moved the ball. If you go into the next clip, this is again, this is highlighting that they sort of tried this man-to-man press. You can see Murray going for Rocky there. Tiffany's across his side on Miller, and Triantis and Levitt are marked up as well. But what we were able to do in those positions, we were very patient. In this clip, if you go into the next one, Rocky actually just goes back to Smith, and he actually pulls into a decent position on the right hand side there to get the ball and just create that little 2v1 to maybe get past Murray. But because they were pushing up on Iredale and Miller, Dundee's front players, we were just able to go and clip into the channels for Obita and for Chris Cadden. And if you go into that next clip here, we get possession of the ball there. It ends up with Levitt, and you can see that's Dundee's midfield there that I've drawn the lines between as well. So you can see, they are pushed up on Levitt and Triantis. Silla, you can see, is picking up Hoylett on that side there. And if you look at that space that Kurevich has got there, that's pretty ridiculous. You can't even see
Dundee's
back four.
Yeah.
So that's why I was surprised, because I just didn't really know. I don't really know what they were trying to do. And then in this example, Levitt just pops it through, and if you go into the next clip, it ends up that Kurevich opens it up, he switches it across the pitch to Chris Cadden, and we get a ball into the box. And it was the same on the other side as well. You can see again, like Silla was obviously just man marking Hoylett or trying to stay with him, but because Hoylett drifts to that side, it just kept leaving these big open spaces in the middle. In this example here, it's actually Kurevich who sprints out to the touchline to keep the ball in. He goes into Obita. You can see that one of Dundee's midfielders is then close to closing down Obita, but Levitt's in acres of space. So if you go into that next clip, he's then able just to turn. Again, there's Dundee's midfield there. I mean, they're positioned quite nicely in a little sort of right-handed triangle there, but it's not ideal when there's that massive space in the middle this time. Yeah. Obviously, there's no Kurevich to come and collect the ball there, but what we do have on the other side is Chris Cadden and just acres of space, and Levitt's able to hit a really good switch out to Chris Cadden, and we go and we attack again. And then this is where, we play that little 2v1 that I touched on at the start. I thought Rocky, he looked really comfortable, really confident. This is after his goal, so he's got a spring in his step. And in this clip here, you can see he dribbles out. If you go into the next part, he gets Murray, Tiffany, all across to this one side, and then he just plays it inside for Chris Cadden. If you go into the next clip, we're able then to go forward. Cadden plays it down the line for Hoylett, and I highlighted Lewis Miller here because we're going to see for Bowie's goal a similar type of run from him, but he was very keen, especially when Chris Cadden doesn't go. He's more than capable of driving forward and making a run, and you can just see there you've got Obita, you've got Boyle, Kurevich going through the middle. Miller actually makes a good little underlap, and Hoylett probably should slip on the ball in this example. I think he tries to cross it in at the back post, and we don't take the chance. But again, it just shows even if Dundee gets set, we've got the fact that Iredale and Miller can step out and be part of the attacks and actually create chances. It just shows like a sort of another string to our bow in terms of going forward. Yeah,
I'm just going to tee up while we're talking about that. There is a piece going on the website about Miller's change of role and what he can do within that. So that teed me up quite nicely for that there. Thank you.
No, we didn't even plan that. So
no, we didn't at all. No. That'll be tomorrow morning. You can read a wee bit more about how he's thriving in that role. But yeah, sorry, please continue.
No. And if you go into that next clip, this is just going into a little bit of the second half as well, and you can see Hoylett this time actually takes his position out on the sort of right-hand side for Hibs, and this is Chris Cadden here. And I just thought it was worth highlighting Hoylett because he probably, because of Bowie's contributions and goals and Gale coming on and Rocky getting his goal, maybe Hoylett went a bit under the radar, and obviously he got subbed off sort of 60 odd minutes in. But I think his impact in that game, can't be understated. He was just so good, and just his positioning, he just caused, as I said, I don't think Dundee were very well organised, but he just caused them so many problems. And just little moments like this where Chris Cadden gets it, he pops it into Hoylett. If you go into that next clip, he's able just to get, hold off the defender just to give Cadden enough time to get going. He pops it back in there. And then if you go into that next clip, then Boyle, I think, this is where the front three are really recognised that Kurevich is sort of stretching the line here, but it's Boyle that drops deep to able to combine with Chris Cadden to pop it down the side. And actually, if you go into the next clip, I think I maybe included, we get into this position here, and it's not the best ball from Chris Cadden on that side, but again, you've got that, even though Hoylett's dropped to do the build-up there, you've got Obita on the other side who's then able to get forward to support, and then we still have Kurevich and Boyle there as well. So just across both sides of the pitch, the left and the right, I just thought we looked so dangerous, and we were able to hit Dundee down both sides, but also through the middle as well. We had Kurevich and Hoylett had that counter-attack early on in the game as well. We created chances at the edge with Rocky putting into Kurevich, who shot past the post. I just thought that first half performance, we were very, very strong.
Yeah, you touched on Hoylett there, and like Dundee's maybe structural issues, but Hoylett's he's the type of player that thrives on disorganisation in the opposition, isn't he?
Oh, totally. Yeah, and he just drifts, and I think now that, because we talked at the top of the show about that consistency, having him playing and Kurevich playing and Boyle, that's just allowing movements off each other become a bit more clear and a bit more concise and things like that as well. So I think that consistency's been a massive part, and it certainly helps. It does obviously wonders for your defensive players, which we've seen with the run we're on and the record we're on and the clean sheets we're doing, but for your forward line as well, it's massive to be playing games together. And I think that's why Kurevich gets the nod. And I thought he had a brilliant first half. I thought he did everything bar get his goal, and he was so unlucky when he hit the post and had his other chance that Rocky teed off at the edge. But I thought his hold-up play was brilliant. I thought he looked really clean. Just everything he did was really good. And, his running off the ball, his willingness to run the channels, that can't be understated, just how big a job that is for the team. And I did think he was a wee bit poor in the start of the second half, and you knew Bowie was going to come on, and I think he knew he was going to go off. And I always laugh when his number goes up because he just stands still, he doesn't move.
He doesn't.
He doesn't like to come off, but I just think it's worth highlighting him and Hoylett, who maybe don't grab the headlines, but just the work that Kurevich put in, and then just Hoylett's just genius was just brilliant to watch.
I know it's not quite happening for him in front of goal at the moment, Kurevich, but I think you can, as you've touched on there, I think you can see the benefit of him having got a few games and a few run of starts under his belt, because I think his general play does look sharper, as you said there, and it's a case for, it gives you the option to not kind of overuse Bowie at this point, because I know though, he said last week, it's not a case of managing his minutes at a certain point, but he did say that starting that maybe, I don't know if it was maybe 4 or 5 games in a row, did take a wee bit of a toll on him. So with Kurevich looking a bit sharper, and in terms of his all-round play, that can only be a good thing, and hopefully it starts to happen for him in front of goal there, because he's a really honest player with his work rate. If it's not happening for him, he doesn't go in the huff, he doesn't start sulking. I know he said he doesn't like to come off, which obviously no player does. He always, I think when he can see the sub starting, he seems to position himself as far away from the touchline as he can.
I noticed that as well.
So hopefully it starts happening for him in front of goal, because I think he deserves a bit of a break. So speaking of goals, let's get through these 4 kind of really, as I said, really kind of enjoyable goals. Not sure where this came from Rocky Bashiri. This was a striker's finish if I've ever seen one.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I'll post something later. We just didn't have enough time, but we actually had an earlier free corner routine where we looked like we were targeting that sort of front post area, and that I'll post it later. But Hoylett's the one that runs out. He tries to take Murray out, and it's not a great ball from Boyle, and Murray clears it. So we have a similar setup here. The only difference being Obita also goes in on the goalkeeper this time. In the previous one, he doesn't. And we've got Kurevich and Miller, who are starting. Obviously, you can see at the right-hand side of the box. And I think the aim really is to try. I think Boyle's trying to put a bit of whip on it to that front post, and we're trying to get Miller to attack that front post. Kurevich sort of stays near the back post, and we're hoping for maybe a flick on, and he can get in on the line. And Rocky and Obita are there just to be like a nuisance and to just stop the goalkeeper coming out, and just to put an extra body in there and create that extra bit of chaos. But what happens this time is, if you go into the next clip, Boyle actually puts in a really, really good ball into that sort of front post area. You can see Miller driving across, making that run across the front post. Kurevich attacking in at the back. Trianta's coming in at the back as well. If you go into the next clip, I don't know if it's Murray's obviously at the front post, I think, and Miller, and I think Shaughnessy's attacking with Miller, but they both just, Murray completely mistimes his jump. Miller gets up, doesn't make any contact, and you can just see Rocky's just sort of pinned Robertson. And it's a brilliant finish. It's a really, because I kind of thought maybe he'd taken a wee deflection, or Miller had got a flick on and take the pace out of the ball, but I don't think he did. And
no, it's very deliberate.
If you go into that next slide, he hooks it. You can see there he's sort of pinned in. It's a great position to be in, and he catches it so sweetly. And as I said, there's a lot of pace on that corner from Boyle, and the fact that, you know, Murray, Shaughnessy and Miller all jump at the same time, he maybe sees it just a little bit late, and it's just a fantastic finish just to guide it into the top left-hand corner, and just brilliant for him on his 100th appearance. And I thought, again, he obviously gets the headlines for the goal, but I thought defensively, he just, you know, with all this hype about Simon Murray, the goals he's been getting, the links to Scotland, you just seen that Rocky's performance, just, you know, he was so quiet all day. Murray couldn't get a look in. Rocky absolutely dominated everything in the air. And just the way he played out from the back as well, I thought he was unbelievable.
Yeah, I think he was a worthy man of the match. So second goal, and this was, for me, like, before we kind of get into the mechanics of it, I think this goal just kind of typifies the effect of confidence on players, because I think there would have been a point in the season where that ball comes towards Lewis Miller and he just sends it first time back where it came from. But I think when you've got this sort of belief that these Hibs players have got about them at the moment, you know, well, it produces what we saw here.
Yeah, and I've got to confess, you know, I thought Millard had a couple of times where he had tried a few things, and I'd said to my mate at the game, I said, you know, when he just plays simple, he's so good. It's when he tries to complicate things go wrong. And when he brought the ball down here and started to drive forward, and he made that big run, I did turn to my mate and go, oh, what's he doing in this position now? And I had to very much swallow my words on it. But yeah, it's a great touch. He just cushions it with the left thigh, and something I didn't appreciate until watching it back. If you go into the next clip, he sort of pauses on the ball a little bit, and he waits until you can see Levitt's there, Triantis is there, so you know you can see Mulligan just going towards Triantis and Fraser Robertson, just sort of planting his feet there, and he kind of waits just to see if Mulligan's going to go right towards Triantis and just leave that space. It's really good. He sort of just, it's really, if you go back and watch it, he just pauses and then he sees that Mulligan overcommits and then he drives forward. If you go into the next clip, he switches the ball out to Obita. You can see Bowie straight away getting on the move there. And then if you go into the next clip, Obita gets the ball here, and you can just see him going for that run. It's interesting because Bowie makes that initial run, and you can just see here in the clip, Bowie then sort of, that's him planting his foot to go, Miller's going into that space, I'll stay in the middle. And as we touched on at the top of the show, if you go into the next clip, the big issue for Dundee is then, well, who's going to pick up that run? And you can see I've highlighted Silla, Mulligan there, that they're miles off it. The Dundee right, I think McGee's pushing out towards Obita to deal with the cross. Shaughnessy, I mean, he could go out there and he could go out and deal with Lewis Miller, but that's not somewhere he wants to go, and you don't want your centre half out there. But because we play with wing backs, you've got Cadden in at the back post there. You know, you've got Boyle coming in as well, so we've got some really good options. If you go into that next clip, Obita slips in Miller. As soon as he gets into this position, Bowie actually stops and just sort of plants himself at the edge of the penalty box. And again, no Dundee player anywhere near him. Shaughnessy's very aware of him, but probably can't come out of that front post position, has to sort of hold his position there. And if you go into the last clip, obviously Miller gets in and, you know, pulls it back with his left foot. It's a really good ball back, and it's just a brilliant finish from Kieran Bowie. Like, that's a really difficult finish, that one, to let the ball come across you and go in, and it goes right into the top corner, and just a brilliant goal, and just that, probably just shows you just how confident the team is at the moment, that that's your right centre back squaring the ball there with his weaker foot for your second goal. It's just brilliant.
From the left wing position. And I actually completely agree with what you said about Miller, in terms of, you know, that it's one of the things I kind of touched on for this article tomorrow, is like, a lot of time he did keep it simple yesterday for the most part. I think as the game went on, I think some of the clips I watched, he was trying a couple of balls down the line that weren't really on, but I think especially in the first half, pretty much everything he did was simplified. And I think you're absolutely right in saying that's where you know, that is when he's kind of at his best. But then I suppose that is kind of maybe a bit contradictory when you're looking at moments like this and what he's kind of capable of when he charges forward, because it introduces a bit of chaos, really, just having that third centre back who is willing to step into areas where you wouldn't expect centre backs to go. You could see there that that like I think that like if you see a sort of a centre back stepping in, it's almost as if nobody's going to think immediately, oh, it's my responsibility to pick up this centre half who's suddenly marauding into it. It's not like you'd always, because you just don't expect that to happen. So
Ryan Porteous was brilliant at it. That's one of his. That was when he played in a back three. That was something he was really good at, driving forward and just creating an overload and just a little bit. And then, like you say, if somebody has to step out at some point, and if they do, then you should have an extra player down that channel and down that side. So, I mean, I can't remember Porteous ever getting into a position like this, but it was incredible from him, to be fair. And again, I thought he had a really, really solid afternoon. He defended really well as well.
Aye, absolutely. A really good game for him. And as I said, you can read about that tomorrow on the website. So on to the third goal now. Another goal for Bowie. Another really good finish.
Well, we're Dwight Gill first for that third goal. So
aye.
I know it's confusing when you score all these goals. You know what I mean? So
it's just getting over.
So obviously Gill comes on for Boyle. Campbell comes on as well. And we never mentioned, but obviously Miko and Levitt came off for Bowie and for Mariah Welsh. So I didn't realise this at the time, but it's actually Gale. Dundee are kind of on a little bit of a break, and Gale's actually the one that wins the first tackle here, just to stop it, a counter-attack. And I just think that, again, just highlights that mentality from the team at the moment. 2-0 up, that's when we make those subs, these guys are coming in, not just to sort of see out the game, they're coming on to be part of it and get goals. So it's a really good win from Gale. If you go into the next clip, it ends up back at Obita, but then back to Triantis. And this is sort of where Bowie and Gale really link up, and it was really sort of old school, two strikers linking up together, a bit like Quinn and Phillips and things like that back in those days. But Triantis is on the ball, and you can see Bowie putting his hand out there just beside the referee, looking for it, and Gale moving across. If you go into the next clip, there's a wee bit of movement. Bowie looks at Gale, who's now dropping a little bit deeper. If you go into the next clip, they sort of switch. So Gale comes in, Bowie makes that run down towards the channel. Triantis finds him in that position. If you go into the next clip, as soon as the ball's travelling, just as you can see, just before it gets to Bowie, Gale, sort of that's him turning there and spinning straight away off the Dundee player. And then the next clip, I just wanted to highlight, like, it's just such a great touch from Bowie. Just he takes it outside of the left boot first time to come inside, just buys him that little bit of space and time. You can see Gale on the move there. And then Bowie cuts it across for Gale, and it's just he gets a lovely, just a tiny little touch before Stilla gets to the ball. And then, of course, when he gets in this position here, if you go into that next clip, he just, he scores. He scored in the Premier League. He's a very, very good player. And if you get into a position like this, he just guides the ball, uses Shaughnessy to bend the ball round and just puts it into the bottom corner, and just a great finish, and just great, I'm sure, for David Gray to see your two subs combine like that to score the third.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a brilliant finish. That really kind of one of those makes it look easy when it's not really. I mean, like, he's still got bodies in front of there. Shaughnessy knows what he's going to do, or what he's going to try and do there. You can see him making the move towards there, but I suppose it's one thing knowing what he's going to do, and another thing actually trying to stop it. And then, we'll just forget about what I said. This is the second Kieran Bowie goal.
Yeah. So obviously a great goal from him, brilliant assist, and we put Chris Cadden comes off for Nicky Cadden. Nicky Cadden actually goes out to right wing back. I kind of thought Obita would maybe get shuffled across, but we kept it the same. And the reason that we find ourselves in this position is actually Nicky Cadden hits a fairly poor corner in that gets cleared, and then we win the ball back, and he's still on the left-hand side, having just played the corner. So that's why we've got this. Gray didn't go too wild and play two left wing backs on the same side. But you can see Obita plays the ball, and that's him just taking his touch, and you can already see Bowie peeling off and going as he opens up. It's interesting because, again, like, you just look at these runners, 83rd minute, you've got Gale running into that space in behind. Bowie's running off the back of Shaughnessy here. That's actually Campbell's making that run in between Bowie and Gale. That's Lewis Miller, I think, at the back post. still forward, and that's actually Rocky, who's still up from the corner attacking in. So again, for Dundee, we're just sort of smothering them there with so many players just still in that attacking part of the pitch. And of course, I did get the Lewis Miller goal assist wrong when I said he should do it, but as soon as Nicky Cadden got the ball there, I was like, Bowie's head, has to be Bowie's head, and it was just a crazy good delivery from him. If you go into that next clip, and it's just, he obviously hits it just into that space that's just a nightmare for a defender. You just can't defend that. Goalkeeper can't come. A defender doesn't want to go there. You know, Gale's run sort of kept the Dundee fullback tight to him, so he's got that space. He just bends it round him. Gale again in that position probably puts Shaughnessy in a difficult spot to know whether to stick to Gale or to drop in. And actually, because Rocky's still up there, and you can see he's got his hands lightly on Robertson a little bit. He's obviously just keeping Robertson at bay to come and deal with Bowie. And if you go into that next final clip, it's a very well connected header. You see Robertson does get a cross in the end, but he's too late to deal with it. And it's just a brilliant header from Bowie, and just capped off just a brilliant all-round performance.
Yeah, absolutely right. A really, really good display from Hibs. So just before we go, it would be kind of remiss of us not to touch on the post-split fixtures are out. Hibs starting with a trip to Pittodrie, then at home to Dundee United, and there as well the week sort of usually throws up a bit of a quirk, these fixtures, as Hibs will be going to St Mirren for a third time this season. So what's your reaction to them? I feel like there's a real opportunity there, having Aberdeen and Dundee United in the first two games to really kind of, with the momentum Hibs have got behind them at the moment, to really try and hammer home their advantage and put a bit of distance between themselves and those two teams.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, everybody after the game yesterday, everybody was sort of talking about what the fixtures might look like, and I think obviously everybody knew that we were going to end up just with two home games and 3 away, just because of the way the fixtures have worked this season. So you're right. It's those two games. I mean, that's your Aberdeen and Dundee United. They're the two teams that are closest to us. They're the two teams that are fighting for third alongside us. So we're in that run of form at the minute. If you can get victories in those games, then it puts you in a really good position, and hopefully means that you can go into those final games against Celtic and St Mirren. And I think we've got Rangers, don't we, in the last
lunchtime kickoff at home. Yep.
Yeah, that you want to go into that game hopefully having secured third or been thereabouts and putting in a big performance for the last home game of the season. So I think I'm actually sort of quite happy with how those fixtures have come out. I think they're your two teams you want to face early, especially when we're in the form that we're in.
Yeah, aye, exactly. I would totally agree. I mean, I think whatever way you spin these games, it's never going to look straightforward. So I think your initial reaction when you see it at first could be like, well, that looks really tough, but it's always going to be, and it's the same for everybody, really. It's not just Hibs who have that. That kind of the real test and run. And I think I agree with you, to have those two teams, the two teams that are right round about you in those first two games, with Hibs still on this unbeaten run is kind of, I think that's ideal. I think Hibs, in-house, was probably I wanted something like that, because then you don't want to maybe have to, you wouldn't have wanted to go to Celtic Park before Celtic have wrapped.
Liam, you've disappeared on me, but no, I echo what you're saying, that you don't want to go into those final fixtures and certainly have to be playing for, but I suppose if you lose those games or you don't pick up enough points against the Aberdeen and Dundee United in the first two games, at least you've got St Mirren, you've got Rangers at home to finish. So it puts you into hopefully a good place. And it's we've got a bit of time off now. Hopefully that gives the players another chance to recuperate, rest, get back on the training field again, and sort of drive on towards the end of the season and keep that unbeaten run going. I think with the fixtures that have come out, we've got potential to certainly do that in the next couple of games, and we'll take it from there. But without Liam, it'll probably be up to me to wrap up the show. So again, folks, thank you for tuning in. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for your comments as well. It's always much appreciated. I'm sure Liam will be on later in the week to do some build up and probably discuss these fixtures in a little bit more detail. Another plug for his Lewis Miller article that will be on the website tomorrow. And keep a lookout for my channel as well, because I'll post a few things from the game and highlight a couple of the corner routine prior to Rocky's goal as well. But thank you very much, and we'll speak to you again soon.